I stood on the porch of the house I'd paid for, staring at trash bags filled with my clothes. My daughter Tessa leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, her face cold as winter stone. "Mom, it's time you moved on," she said flatly. "This is my house now." Behind her, Kyle smirked, twirling my spare key around his finger like a trophy. My chest tightened. I'd just cleared their mortgage 3 weeks ago, writing a check that emptied half my retirement savings. "Tessa, please," I whispered, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. "You said it was a gift, remember?" Her words cut deeper than any knife. Neighbors peeked through curtains, watching my humiliation unfold in broad daylight. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my voice died in my throat. Kyle stepped forward, blocking the doorway completely. "Come on, Ellen. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The door slammed before I could respond, leaving me alone with garbage bags and shattered dignity. My hands trembled as I loaded bags into my car. Mrs. Patterson from next door pretended to water her already soaked garden, stealing glances my way. I couldn't look at her. Couldn't face the pity in anyone's eyes. I knocked one more time, desperate. Tessa opened it just wide enough to show her irritated face. "Mom, I need boundaries. You're too controlling." The accusation stung worse than the eviction. I'd raised her alone after her father died, worked double shifts at the school to afford her dance lessons and college tuition. Controlling? I'd given her everything. Kyle appeared behind her again, pocketing my house key with deliberate slowness. "Don't come back, Ellen. It's better this way." I drove away, my vision blurred with tears, parking finally in a grocery store lot. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from Tessa. "Don't come back, Mom. It's better this way." I played it twice, hoping I'd heard wrong. The Sunset Motel smelled like old cigarettes and broken dreams. I sat on the sagging bed, clutching the only photo I'd grabbed, my late husband Thomas holding baby Tessa. What did I do wrong? I whispered to his frozen smile. My bank account showed $287.42. The mortgage payoff had taken $42,000, nearly everything I'd saved teaching for 37 years. I'd planned to live modestly on my pension, maybe travel a little. Instead, I was 62 and homeless, cast aside like yesterday's newspaper. The ceiling fan rattled overhead, barely moving the thick summer air. I tried calling my sister but shame stopped me before it rang. How could I admit my own daughter threw me away? Outside, someone's television blared through paper-thin walls. I lay back, staring at water stains that looked like continents on an unknown map. Sleep wouldn't come. Only questions circled endlessly. Why now? Had I been too involved? Too present? The answers felt just beyond reach. Morning brought no comfort, only harsh sunlight through torn curtains. My sister called 3 times. I let it ring, unable to face her questions. Instead, I bought a newspaper from the motel lobby, circling job ads with a shaky pen. Retired principal seeks work. The irony wasn't lost on me. One ad caught my attention. Bright Path Learning seeks experienced educators. I'd heard of them, a small tutoring firm with a good reputation. My card declined at the coffee machine. The desk clerk, a tired woman with kind eyes, waved me off. "On the house, honey. You look like you need it." I thanked her, blinking back fresh tears. Outside, a familiar truck rolled past slowly. Kyle's black Ford, windows tinted dark. My stomach dropped. Was he checking if I'd really left? The truck circled once more before disappearing down the highway. I clutched my coffee, suddenly aware how vulnerable I'd become. No home. No savings. No safety net except my own determination. Bright Path Learning occupied a cheerful yellow building near the community college. Inside, children's artwork covered the walls, bright and hopeful. The owner, Howard, was a gentle man in his 50s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Ellen McKay?" He smiled warmly. "I remember when you were principal at Jefferson Elementary. My daughter had you for 6th grade." Relief washed over me. Recognition meant credibility, and credibility meant a chance. We talked for an hour about education philosophy, learning styles, struggling students who needed patient guidance. Howard's passion matched my own, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something besides pain. "You're exactly who we need," he said finally. "Can you start Monday?" I nodded, fighting tears again, but these were different. These were tears of gratitude. As I left, Howard mentioned casually, "We're expanding soon. Thinking about educational centers in residential areas." The words didn't register fully then. They would later. My niece Carla hosted her annual summer barbecue 2 weeks after I started working. I almost didn't go, and insisted, practically dragging me from my new efficiency apartment. The yard was full of relatives, their laughter feeling distant and hollow. I stood near the fence, picking at potato salad, when I heard Kyle's voice carrying across the patio. "We'll probably sell the old place soon," he announced loudly to Tessa's cousin. "Upgrade to something nicer. The market's hot right now." My hands started shaking. The old place. My house. The one I'd sacrificed everything to save. Tessa laughed beside him, touching his arm affectionately. "Mom's house was nice, but we need something bigger." Mom's house. As if I'd never lived there, never painted those walls, never planted the garden they'd let die. I set down my plate, hands trembling too hard to hold it steady, and noticed my face. "Ellen, you okay?" I nodded, lying, and slipped out through the side gate before anyone else could see me crumble. That night, I searched property listings on my phone, torturing myself. There it was, my house, listed for $285,000. The photos showed the living room I'd repainted last spring, the kitchen where I'd taught Tessa to bake cookies, the porch where Thomas proposed 40 years ago. Motivated sellers, the description read. Quick closing preferred. They weren't just moving on. They were erasing me completely, profiting from my generosity without a second thought. Something hardened inside my chest, replacing the constant ache with cold determination. I wouldn't cry anymore. Wouldn't beg. Wouldn't be a victim. The next morning, I arrived at Bright Path early, volunteering for extra projects, mentoring younger tutors, proving my worth beyond the paycheck. Howard noticed. "Ellen, you've transformed this place in just 3 weeks. I want you involved in something bigger." He gestured toward his office. "Come on. Let me show you our expansion plans." I followed, not knowing this moment would change everything. Howard spread blueprints across his desk, pointing to neighborhoods marked in yellow highlighter. "We're looking at foreclosed properties, undervalued homes in good school districts. Convert them into learning centers, after-school programs, community spaces." His finger traced familiar streets. My old neighborhood. My stomach tightened. Then I saw it. The address written in red ink, 847 Maple Drive. My house. Tessa's house. The house I'd paid for. "This one's perfect," Howard continued, unaware my world was spinning. Property taxes 3 years behind. Home equity loan in default. Banks eager to sell. Kyle and Tessa were drowning in debt they'd hidden from everyone. The mortgage was paid, but they'd apparently borrowed against the house anyway, spending money they didn't have. "Ellen." Howard studied my face. "You look pale. You know this area." I swallowed hard. "Yes. I know it very well." "Professional. Stay professional. When does this close?" Howard checked his notes. 2 weeks, assuming inspections go smoothly. I barely slept, wrestling with conscience and anger. Should I warn Tessa? Tell her what was coming? But then I remembered trash bags on the curb, Kyle's smirk, my daughter's cold dismissal. "Don't come back, Mom." They'd made their choices. Actions carried consequences, even for daughters who forgot their mothers were human. Still, doubt gnawed at me during quiet moments. Was I being vindictive? Petty? No, I decided finally. I wasn't causing their foreclosure. Their own reckless spending and unpaid debts did that. I was simply doing my job, helping Bright Path expand into communities that needed quality education programs. The deal proceeded smoothly. Bank inspections, title searches, legal paperwork. I stayed carefully distant from decision-making, letting Howard and the lawyers handle everything. But when Howard asked who should supervise renovations, my name came up naturally. You know the neighborhood, Ellen. You understand the community. You're perfect for this. I accepted, knowing full well what it meant. I'd be walking back into my own house. The key felt heavy in my palm as I stood on that familiar porch 3 weeks later. Bright Path's contractors had cleaned out the property. Tessa and Kyle had moved quickly once the foreclosure notice arrived, leaving behind only debris and memories. I stepped inside. The living room looked smaller somehow, diminished. Trash littered the corners. Walls I'd painted buttercream yellow were now scuffed and marked. The kitchen counter where Tessa learned to crack eggs was covered in coffee rings. In the hallway, I found it. A photograph, face down on the dusty floor. I picked it up carefully. Tessa and me at her high school graduation, both grinning widely, her diploma held high. My thumb traced her young face. Where did that girl go? The one who hugged me tight and whispered, "I couldn't have done this without you, Mom." I set the photo on the windowsill, refusing to take it. This wasn't my home anymore. It was something new, something better. A place where children would learn, grow, thrive. Maybe that was the greatest gift I could give, transforming pain into purpose. Tessa stormed into Bright Path's office during my Tuesday morning shift, her face flushed with fury. "You manipulated this," she shouted across the reception area. Parents and students turned, staring. "You stole our house." I stood calmly, keeping my voice steady though my heart raced. "I did nothing of the sort, Tessa. You stopped paying your property taxes. You defaulted on a loan. Bright Path purchased the property legally through the bank." Her hands balled into fists. "You could have warned us. You could have helped." The hypocrisy was stunning. "Like you helped me? When you threw me out with trash bags?" Silence fell across the waiting room. People pretended not to listen while hanging on every word. Tessa's face crumbled briefly before hardening again. "You'll regret crossing me," she hissed, low enough only I could hear. Then she turned and left, slamming the door so hard the window rattled. Howard appeared from his office, concerned. "Ellen, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." I smiled tiredly. Life has a way of returning what we give. I'm fine. Kyle's landscaping business collapsed that fall. A major commercial contract fell through, leaving him with equipment payments he couldn't cover and workers he couldn't pay. Karma worked quietly but thoroughly. My phone buzzed occasionally with calls from Tessa's number. I never answered. Each time, I'd stare at her name glowing on the screen, remembering trash bags and slammed doors, then set it aside. Meanwhile, the learning center bloomed. Contractors rebuilt walls, painted classrooms in cheerful colors, installed new carpet and bright lighting. Howard hired 3 excellent teachers and a part-time counselor. We opened in October with 30 students enrolled. On opening day, a shy third grader named Amy presented me with a handmade mug. "Best teacher ever," was painted crookedly across the side in purple letters. My eyes burned. Tessa had made me an identical mug in 2nd grade. I'd kept it for decades until the eviction, when it had disappeared into one of those trash bags, probably broken. "Thank you, Amy," I whispered, hugging her gently. "I'll treasure this always." With steady work and careful budgeting, I saved enough for a small condo by the lake. Nothing fancy, just 2 bedrooms, a sunny kitchen, and a balcony overlooking water that changed colors with the seasons. The first morning I woke up there, I sat with coffee watching sunrise paint the lake gold and pink. Peace. For the first time in months, I felt genuine peace. My neighbors, an elderly couple named Frank and Donna, welcomed me with homemade cookies. "We're so glad someone nice moved in," Donna said warmly. "The last tenant was awful, loud parties every weekend." I started teaching free weekend classes at the community center, helping struggling students with reading and math. Parents thanked me with tears in their eyes. "You've given my son confidence he never had," one mother said, gripping my hands. This was who I was meant to be. Not someone begging for scraps of affection, but someone giving freely because it brought joy. My phone rang again. "Tessa." I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. "Mom." Her voice cracked, barely recognizable. Can we talk? Please. I said nothing, waiting. We're losing everything. Kyle left. He cleaned out our account and disappeared. I have nowhere to go. Tears came through clearly now, genuine and desperate. Part of me ached to rescue her, to be the mother who fixed everything. But a stronger part remembered the lesson I'd learned. Helping people who refuse to change only enables more pain. I'm sorry, sweetheart, I said quietly. I truly am. But I can't fix what I didn't break. Long silence stretched between us. Mom, please. I need you. Those words would have destroyed me 3 months ago. Now they just made me sad. You needed me when you threw me out, Tessa. You needed me when you sold the house I paid for. I was there, and you rejected me. My voice stayed gentle but firm. I love you. I always will. But love doesn't mean rescuing you from consequences. She sobbed harder. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I believe you. But sorry isn't enough anymore. You need to rebuild yourself, not lean on me again. I ended the call before my resolve could weaken. Family pressure came swift and heavy, and cold within hours. Ellen, she's your daughter. You have to help. My cousin phoned next, pleading Tessa's case. She made mistakes, but she's family. You can't abandon her. Even Howard mentioned it carefully. I heard about your daughter's situation. No judgment either way, but I wanted you to know I support whatever you decide. Their words pressed down like weights, making me question everything. Was I being too harsh? Too cold? I drove past the learning center that evening, watching children stream out with parents, backpacks bouncing, faces bright with accomplishment. Through the window, I saw Amy showing her mother a graded test, beaming with pride. This place existed because I'd stood firm. Because I'd chosen dignity over desperation. If I caved now, what message did that send? That boundaries meant nothing? That people could discard you, then expect rescue when convenient? No. Love sometimes meant letting people fall so they could learn to stand. I drove home, resolving not to waver. Tessa appeared at my door on a rainy November afternoon, drenched and shivering. I hadn't given her my address. Someone in the family must have. Mom, please. She looked genuinely broken, mascara streaking her pale face. Against my better judgment, I let her inside. She sat on my couch, wrapped in the blanket I offered, crying softly. I'm so sorry for everything. I was horrible to you. Kyle convinced me you were too controlling, that we needed space. I was so stupid. Her apology sounded real. For a moment, I felt the old familiar pull to comfort and protect. I'm glad you recognize that, Tessa. It's an important first step. She looked up hopefully. Can I stay here? Just temporarily? Until I get back on my feet. There it was. The real reason for tears and apologies. I don't think that's a good idea. Her expression shifted subtly. You owe me this, Mom. After abandoning me. The manipulation was so smooth I almost missed it. Abandoning you? My voice went cold. You threw me out, Tessa. You put my belongings in trash bags and told me never to come back. Don't pretend you forgot. Kyle reappeared in December, jobless and bitter. I knew because Anne mentioned seeing him at Tessa's temporary apartment, a rundown studio she'd rented week by week. They're planning something, and warned. I overheard them talking about legal options. The letter arrived 2 days later. Official legal letterhead, typed accusations. I'd allegedly coerced the home sale, manipulated Brightpath's purchase, abused my position to steal their property. My hands shook reading it. They were threatening to sue, claiming I'd orchestrated their financial ruin. I called Howard immediately. He read the letter, then handed it to Brightpath's attorney. Complete nonsense, the lawyer said after reviewing documentation. You had no involvement in the bank's foreclosure proceedings. You weren't even working here when they defaulted on their loan. This is harassment, nothing more. Relief washed through me, followed by deep sadness. My own daughter was threatening legal action over consequences she'd created. We'll respond firmly, the attorney continued. Make it clear any further harassment will result in countersuits. I nodded numbly. How had we come to this? Lawyers and threats instead of love and forgiveness? I saw Tessa crying in her car outside the office the next week, head down on the steering wheel, shoulders shaking. Everything in me wanted to rush out, to comfort her, to make the pain stop. But I forced myself to wait, to think, to remember. After 10 minutes, I walked outside. She didn't notice me until I tapped her window. Her face was ravaged, eyes swollen, nearly shut. I opened the door, offering tissues. Thank you, she whispered. We stood there silently. Finally, she spoke. Kyle took everything. He convinced me to put our remaining savings in his name for some business opportunity. Then he disappeared. Her voice was hollow, defeated. I have nothing left, Mom. Nothing. I wanted to say I told you so. Wanted to remind her that I'd warned about Kyle years ago. But what good would it do? I'm sorry you're hurting, Tessa. Truly. She looked up. Can you forgive me? I considered carefully. Someday, maybe. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. Her face crumpled. What do I do? You rebuild. You get a job, find a real apartment, face your mistakes honestly. I squeezed her shoulder gently. You're stronger than you think. That night, I sat with Thomas's photo, whispering into the silence. What would you do? His smile offered no answers, only memories of a man who'd loved fiercely but wisely. He wouldn't have enabled destructive behavior, even from our daughter. He'd have set boundaries while keeping his heart open. I think I can do that, I told his picture. But I need your strength. Morning brought another decision. I called Tessa. 1 week, I said. You can stay here for 1 week while you find work and housing. But there are rules. No Kyle, no drama, no manipulation. You help with cooking and cleaning. You apply for jobs daily. And at the end of 7 days, you leave, regardless of circumstances. Silence stretched. Then, quietly, thank you, Mom. She arrived that afternoon with 2 suitcases and empty eyes. I showed her the guest room. Simple, clean, temporary. We'll get through this, I said, hoping I wasn't making a terrible mistake. She nodded, but something in her expression made me uneasy. That entitled tilt of her chin hadn't completely disappeared. Time would tell if she'd truly changed. The first 2 days went smoothly. Tessa cleaned, applied for jobs online, cooked dinner without complaint. We talked carefully around painful subjects, focusing on practical matters. But by day 3, old patterns emerged. She criticized my furniture. This couch is so outdated, Mom. She left dishes in the sink, expecting me to clean them. She took hour-long phone calls in the living room, discussing her future condo with friends. On day 5, I overheard her through the bathroom door. She'll cave eventually. She always does. I just have to play nice a little longer. My stomach turned. Nothing had changed. She was performing, waiting for me to soften completely so she could settle in permanently. That evening, I made my announcement. Tessa, remember our agreement? 1 week ends Sunday. I found 3 apartment complexes with openings. We'll visit them tomorrow. Her face hardened. I need more time. We agreed to 1 week. Things have changed. I need at least another month. No. The word came out firmly, surprising us both. Her eyes flashed with anger. You're really going to throw me out? Again. The irony was staggering. Saturday morning, I drove Tessa to view apartments despite her sullen silence. She rejected each one. Too small. Too expensive. Wrong neighborhood. By the 3rd apartment, I realized she was stalling, believing I'd eventually relent. Pick one by tonight, or I'll help you pack, I said calmly. You're heartless, she spat. Just like everyone always said. The words were designed to wound, to make me question myself. Instead, they clarified everything. You taught me to be strong, Tessa. I just never thought it'd be against my own daughter. That evening, She packed her bags in theatrical silence, slamming drawers, huffing dramatically. I stayed in the kitchen preparing tea, refusing to engage. At the door, she turned. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I acknowledged. "But I'd regret losing myself more." She left without looking back. I closed the door, leaned against it, and exhaled. Free. Guilty but free. My phone stayed silent that night. No calls begging to return. No apologies. Just silence, which somehow felt like closure. A month passed. Snow covered the lake, turning my morning view into a winter postcard. The learning center thrived, with a waiting list of students. Howard promoted me to Director of Community Programs, a title that meant more than I'd expected. "You've built something beautiful here, Ellen," he said during our staff holiday party. "You turned pain into purpose." Amy gave me another handmade gift, a painted ornament showing a teacher and student holding hands. "You're my favorite person," she announced proudly. Children's love, I'd learned, was uncomplicated. Honest. Given freely without conditions or manipulations. Why couldn't adult relationships be the same? Tessa sent a letter in late February. My hands trembled opening it. "Mom, I'm in therapy. Working part-time at a call center. It's not much, but it's honest work. I'm starting to understand what I did to you, how selfish I was. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to change. Really change this time." I read it 3 times, searching for manipulation, finding only tentative humility. Progress? Perhaps. But trust took time to rebuild. 3 months later, Tessa appeared at my door again. This time, no suitcases. Just her, looking tired but clearer somehow. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said quickly. "I just wanted you to see me. Really see me." We sat on the balcony, watching boats drift across the lake. She told me about therapy, about recognizing Kyle's manipulation, about facing her own entitled behavior. "I threw you away like garbage," she said finally, tears streaming. "The one person who always loved me, and I treated you like you were worthless." I reached for her hand. "You hurt me terribly. But you're still my daughter. Can I earn your trust back? Someday." Her voice was small, childlike. "Maybe. If you keep doing the work." Then I said what I'd been practicing for weeks. "But Tessa, you need to understand something. Sweetheart, it's time you moved on. This is my home now." I used her exact words from that horrible day. Her face crumbled as recognition hit, understanding the weight of what she'd said, how deeply she'd wounded me. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." We cried together on that balcony, not reconciliation exactly, but perhaps the beginning of honest acknowledgement. Over the following year, Tessa rebuilt her life piece by piece. She got a better job, moved into a decent apartment, continued therapy faithfully. We met monthly for lunch, careful conversations that gradually deepened. She never asked for money or favors, never pushed for more than I could give. One afternoon at the learning center, I found her in the doorway, watching children learn. "Can I volunteer?" she asked tentatively. I was thinking maybe I could help with reading groups. I studied her face, seeing genuine desire to contribute, not just reconnect. "Let me think about it." 2 weeks later, I agreed. She came Saturday mornings, reading with struggling first graders, patient and gentle. The children loved her. Amy especially. "Miss Tessa tells the best funny voices," Amy reported, giggling. Watching Tessa with those kids, I saw glimpses of the daughter I'd raised. The kind, creative girl who'd been buried under entitlement and bad choices. She was clawing her way back to herself. Could we rebuild what was broken? I didn't know. But I was willing to leave the door open, just a crack, to possibility. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and new beginnings. I sat on my balcony at dawn, writing a letter I'd delayed for months. "Dear Tessa, I forgive you. Not because you've earned it completely, but because carrying anger only hurts me. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means freedom, for both of us. You broke my heart, but hearts can heal if we're patient. I see you trying. I see you changing. That matters more than words ever could." This is my home now, my peace, my sanctuary. But there's room in my life for a daughter who respects boundaries, who understands that love isn't control or obligation, but choice. Keep choosing to be better. Keep choosing honesty. And maybe someday we'll find our way back to each other. Not as we were, but as we should be. With love and hope, Mom. I sealed the envelope, walked to the mailbox, and dropped it inside. Then I returned to my balcony, watching sunlight dance across the lake, feeling lighter than I had in years. The learning center would open in an hour. Amy and 30 other students would fill those bright classrooms, learning and growing and becoming. And I would be there, teaching not just academics, but resilience. Free. Dignified. Finally, peacefully myself.